Pictures up.
Last looks. Rolling.
And action.
Welcome to the Last Looks podcast team.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your Oscar nomination for your work on the film Nosferatu.
Thank you so much.
Of course. And the work being considered is makeup, prosthetics, and hairstyling for the overall film. Now, if you could each tell us your name and what your position on the film was.
Okay, I'm David White, prosthetic makeup designer.
Traci Lerner, makeup designer.
Suzanne, Stokes-Munton, wall designer.
Brilliant. So I would love to know, when you first heard the news that you'd been nominated, what was the first thought that came to mind? Kind of talk me through that moment.
I'll start and I'll be honest. I was shocked and then I cried.
Oh, I'm crying.
Were you watching the announcement?
I did. I wasn't going to, but my sister was watching and my friend and we had a group chat thing going. Yeah, because I
That's
wanted
awesome.
the team got nominated, like from Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was, I think I was so honoured to be accepted by my peers.
Mm.
Yeah, it was emotional.
Yeah, and I thought it was just fantastic. For prosthetics, but in such a subtle sort of way to be involved in this. Not taking over the movie, but actually was terrific. Being part of it, it's an amazing experience.
That's really cool, guys. So if you could talk us through 3 characters, makeup and hair wise, from research and development through to daily application.
So with Lily, it was important to have a hairstyle that she could have done herself.
Mm.
And that is in that period, as opposed to the Emma character. And just to reflect her breakdown very gently. Don't laugh, David. I only use water. I'm sorry. I didn't use any products. So
I don't think you should apologize for that, Susan.
I know excellent. Yeah, I can do anything with a spray bottle. So it's just to also to be able to get the hair back with the repeated takes that we did, scenes all being in one. So 27 times. It was important to be able to pull it back to stage 1 and let it go through that scene for her. And it was just done with kind of old-fashioned hairdressing, really, techniques of doing a plea every night. I was there in the wee hours in car parks all over Prague on my own. And, so making sure that both wigs were ready every day because things change. So, that's Liddy for more.
So she was wearing full wigs, Suzanne?
See, this is something I don't really like to talk about because
Okay.
mention wig, then it's actually her hair. Do you see what I mean? I've spent most of my career trying to I don't want to talk about wigs, it's her hair. I'm not being rude, it should just be her hair.
Okay.
Because often when you talk about wigs, you think about productions that are very wiggy and they are very noticeable.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just that for me, I usually just refer it to as a hair.
Okay. Apologies. I thought you said the word wig.
No. It's just I like it to do so that it looks like I'm not there. I haven't been there and put a wig on. It's nothing against you. Do you know what I mean? It's just to And so her 2 wigs. She did have 2 wigs, and they worked very hard.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
And with Lily, the big thing with Robert is keeping everything realistic. So we didn't approach it in your traditional beauty camera ready makeup. It's kept it with the period and kept it's all like contour, highlight, textures, adding layers, bringing out features, like emphasizing her veins in the possession scenes. keeping her paleness around, because she had like 4 different stages or 5, because she would come in and out of them. And so we wanted to keep her paleness luminous as well. And we had like a mixture of different fairnesses, like lightnesses too, to add to that. So I went with a silicone-based makeup, and I used like white and a pale, and then I trimmed it with a bit of thinner, like silicone thinner, and just really buffed that in. And sometimes it was full body, sometimes it was just her face and arms, and then just working with her character, like how much she was possessed, or how much it was fresh, or how much it was.
So were there a couple of other characters that Suzanne and Traci actually wanted to talk about as well?
Yeah, I was going to say about the Aaron character. I mean, obviously, Aaron had been on a couple of different productions previously when we just got him. So his hair had to be dyed because it wasn't that colour at all. And it was important to make him look manicured. I mean, I used a reference of Ludwig, the Sun King. So that who said I couldn't possibly think of a phrase state before I had champagne in my hair craft. And that's his sort of character. So it was, again, I did use a bit of oil on hers, but it's Marcel Wade and using a crokinole method, and just so that it's precise and giving it a shine, so that in those dark interiors it refracts the light, so you can see the sculptural shape of it. And it was given a shape that he'd never had before. I felt was important.
And for us, because he was from a higher class, and so for the facial hair, we actually went through some different styles that were up for consideration. And then we went with that, and he was able to grow his hair that we could cut into and barber it into that style. And he also had a deterioration throughout the story that we tried to keep realistic so it didn't jump out. And then also when he got his sepsis at the end as well, like bringing that into realization. So it's a lot of subtle work that we did, but just so that it didn't look like makeup, so that it looks real. And to work with Jaren's lighting as well, which could have been challenging.
Yeah.
And I think my third one is Emma Corrin. So with discussions with Robert, he really liked the V party, the double party thing, and he suggested it would be for Lily. But I felt that would be gilding the Lily. And so we made a wig for Emma with that double party. Lily gets hers at the back with V, so he still got it. But Emma front. So it's not pronounced. It would have been far too distracting for Lily to have it, I thought. So Emma had it, which was quite challenging because she had very dark hair underneath. The wig was made in Prague by our wig room there, which was on site. And like Lily, her own hair was used, so that had to be bleached and used in the nape was bleached. Lily's was the same, that had to be coloured down and put up the nape. Yeah, so I think, but it also had to reflect, that style had to reflect the fact that she had a maid and she did it so that it was in complete contrast with Lily's. And to say my key hair and wig person, Ivana, really nailed that. She had to apply that every day because otherwise they would have had to start at 2 a.m. by the time everybody. But she nailed that. And it was hard, but she did it.
Amazing.
So do you want me to talk about Emma, or can I talk about a different character?
You could talk about somebody else. Go for it.
Because I would like to talk about Knock.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God, yes.
Because he has a lot of fun to do.
Yes.
Because with Knock's character, he really goes into the demise of psychosis and becoming Orlok's follower. And he's very unkempt. And like we had, in the beginning, we had like the dirt in his nails, and we just had a little bit of psoriasis, like on the front of his hair. And then after he bites that off the pigeon, he starts to break down and get bloody and dirty and all that, and then he cuts his own hair to shave it. And so we put like nicks from cutting it. We expanded on the psoriasis. He's more filthy. He has the marks on his neck and arms from the shackles in the chair. And it just progressively, as he loses, it gets worse and worse. And, you know, with his facial hair, he's naturally quite white, so we had to do the bit to read not so contrasty on camera.
Right.
And then keeping the remainder in stubble to add to the breakdown. But his character is just a lot of fun to do.
And I'll be greedy because I'll say to my fault.
Go for it.
Is that I'd worked with Simon before, which is always an advantage. So I was able to persuade him or discuss with him to have his head shaved really badly for the latter part, because I knew he had a lot to do, and I don't like wigs to be in the camera's face. I don't want to be in the camera's face, you know, so it would be more comfortable for everybody. And he went for it, and you know, he was working on other projects, so he wore a beanie hat for quite a long time, and his hair had to be bleached up white so that it would actually show and everything. So yeah, that's my story.
That's awesome. It's always nice when they fully lean into it with you. So
Yeah,
that's great to
absolutely,
hear.
absolutely, and they know where you're coming from, that you're actually doing it for the end result. It's not a personal thing about hair. It's not a personal thing about I don't want to put a wig on or whatever. It is truly to help the film
And the character.
and the character and the actor.
Yeah. Awesome. David?
Oh, hi.
Yeah. It's your turn.
Yeah, well, but he, I mean, his main, obviously, his prosthetics are made from natural silicon pieces supplied by those materials, but also they were deadened, which was softened by from 160 to 200%, depending on where they were on the body. The prosthetics on the body are around 20 to 25 pieces. And then on the head is about 9, and the hands are about 20 the time you finish with all the extra blenders.
Wow.
The way the molds are designed is I design molds differently with my key mold supervisor, Case Smith, on different projects to suit the needs financially and also time restraints and also actor availability. So everything's it's a real song and dance to make sure you're putting the right prosthetic pieces where they need to be. So there's a combination of jacket molds, so your fiber jacket molds with silicone the fiber cases. There's a series of flat molds which were also used. So every trick in the book, basically, for this particular show, was used in order to build together. And then there are, because of the weight of that material, obviously I used some foam inserts, little cores which went into the top of his head and also into his back. So they all had their own molds as well. So you're looking at 100 molds or whatever when you come to the end of this whole thing. And also everything is then encapsulated, so it's cap plastic, ready to paint. Pre-painted, all the pieces are pre-painted. I always make sure that the busts have silicone busts made, and we do paint tests. Victoria Holt and Katie Hood did amazing paint tests for us, which were then used for lighting reference as well, which is amazingly important and useful information because it's all the same materials. And then pre-painted and then finished after application, with liquid and palette skin illustrators through airbrush and a lot of natural brush work and sponge work after. So quite a lot of interesting elements. But because they're also used every day, they're thrown away, a new set every day. So you can imagine the crew on set, for a full body application, 6 to 7 people dancing around, doing their thing. Led by Stuart Richards and Victoria Holt and Katie Hood. Amazing team on the set team. and it worked really, really well. His hair was, Faye Weybridge did some beautiful knotting work for his moustache, and his aura, which was a mixture of human and a little bit of yak, just to give it a little bit of texture and thickness, body. And I also made sure that during the design that I wanted to have a little bit of silver streaking coming in at the front of the forelock and on the top and lower edges of the moustache itself, just to indicate a little bit of aging, but not too much and not too stylized. But it helps break up those elements. I could go on if you want me to.
I mean, a little. I think it'd be nice to kind of touch on, I guess, the design process as well, like how you guys came to your
Well, with
finished
Robert,
result.
it was initial conversations before reading the script. We discussed a sort of an age that he would fall into from late 50s onwards, but not a really old man. It was necessary for his character to be, strong. He had to have a certain amount of strength and enigmatic, and he had to be, quite powerful. So there was some interesting notes to have to hit, and also the fact that I know that Bill was very keen that he came across as a romantic, or in the sense that he was a good-looking man once upon a time, and he would want to be attracted to Ellen. So there's a kind of a two-play thing. He wanted to hit those notes, so it wasn't just this, this old guy who was completely undesirable. So, and then Robert was interested in the decay and the rot and where that would fall on his face, head, and body. So you are playing with an enormous amount of elements in order to make everyone happy and hit all the right notes. And it took a while, but it was very organic, and it worked extremely well. The way, because the lighting was going to be so powerful and so cruel. Even during the sculpt process, I was aware of those single notes where you'd get, a shot on the side of his head, and you just get those lovely profile lines with the moonlight hitting the side of him and stuff. So it was sculpted in not near darkness, but there were times when the lights would go down and it would just be spotlights to come and try and emphasize those notes. A bit like a cartoonist, you can get a character with the fewest amount of strokes. And it was a similar kind of technique with the sculpt. It had to read, with about 3 to 4 notes as opposed to 10, So it was quite an interesting study. And then it evolved from there. Once having the Bill Skarsgård life cast, it takes on its own form. Being with Bill, he's an amazing performer, actor. And I knew that I gained confidence through him, because knowing that he could handle these prosthetics. So it was very, very helpful. And he was very supportive, as was Robert. And we just kept plowing forward with my lead sculptor, Colin Jackman, until we came to this spinal lip.
Awesome. Thanks, David. So each year, the nominated films that are showcased, they have such a wonderful range of work. How do you feel your work differs from your fellow nominees?
I'm going to talk about my work. I'm just going to say less.
It's really the array of the different films this year is wide. Like, there's nothing that's really very similar. I think it's just everyone really has their own unique approach to their own film this year. And ours, less is more.
Yeah, I think ours is very to keep that control and not to kind of over accentuate the notes or whatever is very important. So I think the balance was incredibly cool. This movie, with everyone's collaboration, was right on key.
Love it. And what did you find to be your biggest challenge during filming?
That's a good question. I don't know, just the typical things.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing we know, the way Robert works, is that if preparation for the unexpected is a very big thing, isn't it? You cannot tell.
Yeah,
ready.
But also preparation, the way he shoots. So, as I said before, from my point of view, you have to make sure that the hair can survive the whole scene and end up with a close-up of Lily and not all over her face. So it doesn't take over. So you have to know your medium with Robert.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'd say. Mine being hair. So you have to know how it's going to perform, how you can deal with it. I mean, that's why just use water, because you don't want to introduce another element that after 17 takes could, get you into trouble. So, yeah, so I think that's the thing, is just being very prepared, knowing your medium,
And how Robert should.
and how, so that you can work with Robert and adapt to that.
Not necessarily storyboarded everything, and he may want to go off road, and that's when things, you have to be ready.
And maybe he tends to shoot with like one setup that kind of goes in and out and around, and the takes are very, very long.
Yes, usually one camera setup.
Yeah.
And also because you don't have, then you're not going to have that allowance of an edit, so to get you out of the end of a scene, that scene is going to run straight into the next one that you're going to shoot, or you have shot, or you're going to shoot later. So you've got to be very conscious of your starting point and your end point, because you haven't got any
There's no wiggle room
edit. No.
or edits.
Have any of you worked with him before?
I have. It's my third project with him.
Oh, awesome. So
I'm the newbie.
but I'm sure you figured that out pretty quickly, that you needed to be ready for anything. Well, I mean, you kind of do that in this industry anyway, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. First conversation with Robert, I kind of got him, and I knew what I was in for.
That's good. It's good to find out at the beginning.
No, but it's good, because then you either want to do it or you don't want to do it, So, and you're prepared mentally, physically, to get his toys out of the box, because that's what it is.
Yeah, I love it. So normally you kind of get to the end of a job and you might think about lessons that you've learned along the way. What are some standout lessons you learned by the end of this shoot?
I don't think it was necessarily lessons as in a new lesson, but just a refreshing of like collaboration and how important it is, and not just within your department, but within all departments. Yeah, because Suzanne's work and my work overlap, David's and my work overlap. Our costume designer, production designer, lighting, and the lighting is so key. He's always my first conversation because of the lighting that he does. And Robert, like he's such a dream director to work with.
I think
It's awesome.
I think you learn something on every film, and and that's the reason you keep going, is to keep learning. And so, I mean, I've worked with a Czech crew before quite a few times, but there's still things that I can bring to the party, they can bring, and there are cool things. And so you really should keep being a sponge and just keep learning.
Yeah.
And then you store them like a Rolodex. And there was quite a few instances in this film where my crew would come and say, how do we do this? And I'd go, I don't know, but I'll just go away and think about it. And they teased me because I had a notepad by my bed, because sometimes at 2:00 in the morning, I'd wake up and think, oh, that's what I did 20 years ago, or whatever. Or I've heard it, let's try that. And I'd write it down, because otherwise I'd forget.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And also you're relying, you know that on this particular show, working with Robert, that you're not going to be reliant on visual effects in any particular way. This is it. It's like a theatre production in that sense. It's raw, and you've got to pretend it was 30 years ago when we didn't have those luxuries and those tools So your game is up and you're ready for it, which is amazing.
It's basically what we shot, what you get.
Yeah.
Everything is practical.
So, and yes, you're right, actually, because I've worked with a lot of, in old Eastern Bloc countries where they didn't have film stock. So I have experienced that way of filming before, because it's so precious. So they rehearse for 5 hours, then shoot it 3 times and you go home. So I'm used to that, but it's the adaptation then of what Robert wants. So it is like true, honest filmmaking.
I
And
love it. More
think
of
the
that.
people in this show, personally, I think my crew and everybody's crew, it just kind of feels like lightning in a bottle. It's one of those moments where everybody's in the right place at the right time with the right crew. It just feels incredibly comfortable and right, you know,
Yeah.
which is lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was the crowd. So both crowds actually, the street scene and is the biggest one they've ever done in Prague. They had the most makeup people. And I was quite honoured because there's people that, you know, had retired, people that didn't really want to, you know, work anymore because they had babies. They all dropped everything to come and work for us. And I'm proud of them because they did it, you know.
Did an excellent job.
Really good job.
That's so cool. And as we all know, it does take a team. So did you guys want to take a moment to give a shout out to those that helped you on the project?
Ivana Nenkova was my key hair and wig person, who I've worked with before. Absolutely brilliant. She nailed Emma. And that was not an easy one, I know. Milan was my on-site wig maker, who actually did he did facial hair too, and he really rallied the troops for us and got everybody involved, and you know, reworking wigs, etc. Marketta, the little trainee, who actually was stunningly trained and beautiful skill, beautiful fine work. She was responsible for the little bow in the back of Lily's hair in the party scene at the Hardings, you know, which is a fine piece of work, I think. And Blanca, who was the crowd coordinator for both hair and makeup, she worked relentlessly. We did check every single crowd person. Robert likes to see them. So we went through everything. Her English isn't great, but for me, it's fine. I don't need to speak English. Hair is a universal language, you know, up, down, too fat, too whatever. And she got it, and she really, really pulled it out of the bag. So yeah, I'm really proud of them.
And Gabby would translate for us with the detail that we needed. But for me, it's Andrea Brown and Gabby Polakova. And then Blackhead. Like, just, it was truly an incredible team. And I really love the teams in Prague. They're very well-rounded and very talented.
They're very well trained. Oh, little Tamara, mustn't forget her. But they're very well trained
And from
and skilled.
my perspective, Victoria Holt and Stuart Rich were my key prosthetic makeup artists. Incredible job. And also Katie Hood was there, absolutely relentlessly painting away and doing application day to day. Colin Jackman was one of my key sculptor, who did an incredible job. And Kate Smith was my mold designer. Ellie Ball was my amazing coordinator. Sasha Carter, my production manager. The whole team are absolutely amazing.
I love it, guys. So a massive congratulations again. Enjoy the ride. It's going to be so much fun. And thanks for joining me.
Thank you.